So, welcome to our second episode of Coach's Corner, where CX coaching meets all types of coaching. Really excited. We have Major League Baseball prospect. No, not quite prospect, but veteran and a current professional scout with us, Mike Venafro, today. So, look, as we know, coaching is one of the greatest and most important jobs in the world, and human capabilities and being able to drive humans to perform at max levels is pretty critical. And Michael has, get to the pinnacle of his success in his career in baseball. I think 13 seasons of professional baseball, Michael, is that about right?
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you got drafted by the Texas Rangers back in 95, so definitely no longer a prospect there.
Yes.
I think you played Dodgers, Rangers, a bunch of different teams during your career. Really
Yes.
cool.
Bounced
Really
around
cool.
quite a bit.
Awesome. Really cool delivery from the side. Currently a professional talent scout for the Padres organization and as flexes his muscle and prowess as a talent scout today. I think you claim personal responsibility for the quality of the team and the growth of the
No,
team over these
no,
last few years.
that goes both ways then, Dan. It
Ian,
is definitely a team effort. That's how we do it
awesome.
here. Yeah.
Ian, Mike's humble. We're excited to have him here today.
Yes,
Anything to
yes.
add, Ian, before Mr. Humility introduces himself?
Yes, I do. So Mike had an interesting reference in the great movie Moneyball. And Mike, the question I have for you is, from that reference, did you ever get to meet Brad Pitt or Jonah Hill? That's my question for you to start.
No, I
No.
didn't. But I was in the same building as
Oh,
Brad
okay,
Pitt.
very
So
cool.
I got close, but
All
I
right.
did not
Yeah.
get
But
to
you
meet
did
Brad
play
Pitt.
with you, or you did work for, I suppose, Billy
Did you
Beane.
play with them? No, they didn't.
No, I mean, the quick background on that, we were all actually, there were a bunch of us were actually signed to play ourselves in that movie before it was so we were out in Hollywood about a day and a half before we were
Oh,
start
wow.
shooting.
Nice.
And then it kind of fell apart and went into rewrite to be the version that you guys love today.
Very
Yeah.
cool. Yes.
By the way, is Brad Pitt's, is he like 65 years old, Ian?
Yeah, it probably is now. Yeah.
And Mike Venafro, like drafted in 95. Maybe not quite as good looking as Brad Pitt, but definitely doesn't look like he's in his 50s right now. So we should have never left the baseball field. A quick tidbit. So Michael, Ian, and I all went to James Madison University together and played baseball. So my career lasted a lot longer than Michael's, though, because I still play old.
You're still playing. Yeah.
And mine was much, much shorter.
Yes, yes. So I have a tournament this weekend. Hey, Michael, just to kick things off, obviously talking about coaching, do you have a story? Maybe tell us about your favorite coach in your lifetime and maybe why?
Wow. Well, I mean, as you mentioned, 13 plus organizations, college before that, we shared the same college coaches for a little bit. But I mean, I was thinking about this when you guys asked me to come on because I'm very much what's tomorrow. And I don't often stop and think about how I got to where I am today. But when I started I really am just a sum of parts. And I think just learning how to be a good student, I think let me take a little bit from everybody. And I mean, to say I had one good one, I mean, there was the coach that made me aware of, taught me how to compartmentalize, how to be a pro on the field. There was the coach that taught me how to manage successes and failures. There was the coach that was able to get through to me quicker. There was the coach that knew how to kick me in the pants at the right time when I was too relaxed. I mean, they all kind of had their strengths. I don't think I had a favorite, and that could in part be because I did bounce around quite frequently. And in baseball, I don't know how it is in your guys' line of work, but with promotion and trading, moving companies, and in such a competitive field, coaches are being replaced, and you're also advancing to get exposure to new coaches with new coaching plans. So for me, I was just always trying to get something from everybody. I was very open to it.
Yeah, awesome.
And I think, Mike, that what you're getting at is like there are different ways that we need to coach people on an ongoing basis. It's not just one size fits all, and different elements you can take. And it's similar to our space in CX, where it's not just you're fitting into this little box. There are different areas where different needs people need improvement and not everybody's built the same way. Is that kind of fair to say in your
Well, it's very fair to say, especially when you're starting to talk about elite, when you get to the top ends, right? Obviously, we're all welcome. Everyone gets a shot in the beginning, but the funnel really tightens, and that kind of drifts into my talent evaluation side of it now. That's kind of our job, right? You got all these people here with all these great tools, but
Yep.
there's only so much room as you progress closer.
And Mike, I like you bringing up the talent side and elite, right? So Ian and I, we like to say we're the, world's favorite CX coaches, but definitely the most passionate, at that level. And when you talk about, kind of your talent assessment, right, and evaluating talent, as we look at coaching, one of the things in corporate coaching that we find is every company has a different definition. You mentioned every team having a different plan, coaching plan, and different coaches coach differently. With us, even the definition of coaching is different. Do you view a big difference in coaching between player development, where you're assessing talent and the tools that they bring to the table and how you develop that talent as a coach, versus how you coach a team to win and go get a championship and win their league? What's the difference? How do you guys look at it in professional baseball, Michael?
Well, it's structured that way, Dan. So you have your manager, for the most part, is overseeing things, and then he has all his coaches underneath. Like right now, I think, like say in the minor leagues or the big leagues, there's two pitching coaches at each level, two hitting coaches,
Yep.
and your manager. Sometimes the manager can double up in some of those other roles also. But yeah, the onus for communication, for delivering the message, comes down to the coaches. The manager runs the team to win from direction from up top, and they're in direct communication, and it kind of filters down. I mean, that's kind of how it's set up right now. And it
I
has
love
to
it.
be with the introduction of all the new information that we have now, because it's also led to a new type of coach or person in that coaching role, because they really have to be able to understand the analytics, and they
Yep.
have to be able to communicate those to players or the talent. That isn't always, that's not their strength.
And
Their
Jonah Hill,
tools,
Jonah,
their
is Jonah Hill
tools
the
is the
best analytics?
performance, the showcasing.
Awesome. And would you say Jonah Hill probably the best analytics coach out there in your career?
It has to be. Yeah, has to be. Has to be.
That's awesome. So, Michael, one of the things, as you talk about like different technologies and ways that some of these coaches are using analytics and data, I think the original technology I remember from when I started in baseball was the Iron Mike, that
Sure.
that big blue pitching machine. I'm not sure if you're personally had anything to do with that.
Oh, you had a blue one. Yeah,
You
you're
had a
lucky.
big blue one.
Yeah.
Did you have a different color?
Mine, I think ours was black, so it blended right into the batters. You couldn't see it. Yeah, it was coming out
Oh,
of
yeah,
nowhere.
yeah. They tried to make it, they wanted to simulate a more difficult,
Yeah,
challenging
they did. Yeah,
situation.
yeah,
So we
yeah.
had a harder time picking up the ball. And Michael, where have you seen the migration? Baseball's a big one for adopting technology and
Right.
coaching and leveraging that. Where have you seen some big strides recently or even early on in your career as a player?
Wow. Well, it's been pretty aggressive over I'd say the last 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can just look at the depth chart of front offices now and see where all the hires are, right? Those R&D and analytics and architecture and building proprietary systems, they are massive now. It used to be player development still is the biggest, because they're managing the assets, the talent, and the interactions with them. That's what's most important. You're only as good as your talent, right? But it's the tools that we have available now are amazing. Like I mean, I'm not even really allowed to talk about our system, but
That's
they're all pretty
awesome.
much
That's amazing.
proprietary,
Yeah.
and we all have our own way of crunching similar numbers and gathering numbers. And I don't the latest conversation, at least conversations over the last few years, is everybody's AI philosophy moving forward. Have to have an AI strategy, because you're just going to need it. The thing with us though right now is the samples aren't really so big that we need AI, what it's offering right now, to do what maybe we would like to dream for it to be able to do. But it's how quick can we get it for
Yeah.
basic, and what's legal for
Right.
in game. I mean, there's been times when the technology has gotten a few teams in trouble over the
Right.
years, and they're trying to monitor that. But as far as growth behind the scenes, the algorithms, the projections, that that department is running parallel alongside with professional scouting, the department I'm in.
Mhm.
And then they're both used together to make decisions in the end. But we are regularly being coached on all the tools available to us in order to kind of probably sort of create the super scout, someone
Cool.
that's very fluent in all that stuff, has access to all the tools and all the information almost immediately.
I love the term, the
What,
super
Super
scout.
Scout? E?
Go ahead.
What term?
The super scout I love
Yeah.
because I feel like there's so many similarities between that's your space and our space with technology, in that with SimTrain and our AI coaching solution is, analyzing interactions, and then it's, recommending exercises for skill gaps, and then kind of creating this, and continually evaluating that, creating this coaching cycle. And our technology has to be compatible with other technologies and help it work better. And it sounds like it's the same thing with you. We call that, like in our space, this tech stack. So there's various tools that we won't go into now, but our, SimTrain needs to make those things work even better. And it sounds like technology in baseball, it's the same thing, right? You've got and talent assessment and helping your players to reach their full potential. It's all these things that need to work together in order to do that with the best technology out there. Is that a fair?
Ian, two of the things that Mike brought up, right? First off, the amount of data, right? I think in a 160 game season, you might be thinking 100, 700, 800 at bats, Michael, for a full-time player. Is that about the number of ABs in a year?
Yep, 600, depending on the type of player. Yeah,
Yeah.
it really depends. And, pitches vary too, depending on the type of pitch. But it's like, for us, it would be identifying trends and fatigue, which, one win is worth a lot. And, the moves to make one win, the strategy for one win, one close, one
Yep.
win, whatever it may be. I mean, after the fact, it doesn't do us any good.
Right.
It doesn't, it does. But
To get the
wouldn't
next
it be
win.
great if we
Yeah.
knew that we can identify the fatigue before, say, the eye can,
Yep.
because of spin, because
Mhm.
of arm speed, or because of contact rates, or speed off the bat, quality of contact, all those sort of things. And we can use that to help manipulate a roster, give a guy the right kind of rest, find an area to work off of when he fatigues, because we all fatigue, either mentally or physically,
Mhm.
or we have health issues. How can we identify those trends almost as they're happening, right? As
Yeah.
opposed to we're reactive now.
Yeah, and Mike, what's kind of neat is a global contact center agent can get to 700 interactions in 1 week, right? Where a professional baseball player takes them a year to do that, right? So the
Mhm.
amount of data that our customers have compared to, Major League Baseball is off the charts. And you're talking 18 million global contact center agents.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Versus what does a roster have now? 26 times 32?
Right. But then you're also, you have your 40-man roster. So even down in the minor leagues, you're
Yeah.
tracking everyone.
That's-
Is this a better fit? Do we move them up? Do we move them down? It's like all being
Got it.
tracked. But
Yeah, but the amount of data is big on where AI fits in. But I love the different use of technology that you guys are taking advantage of. I would suggest player development is maybe not as important as player analysis and the scouting, personally.
Well, I mean, player development,
My buddy's a scout, so that's why I put it up there a little higher on the chart.
player development, these are the guys you want. Player development to be the biggest support and communication and experience and the day-to-day. And it can be the analytics side and the scouting side a little bit more black and white. We got to trim the fat, really.
Yep.
We got to say this is just not going to be good enough, and we can see what growth has happened. And if a change needs to be made, we can try that change, but we'll see what happens. And it's up to the coach. Like, I mean, I'm not saying it's like, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, kind of thing.
Mhm.
You can't force them to drink, because I don't want to. It's not quite that cut and dry. You need development to go deeper than that, right? It's their job to, as coaches, to really dig in there and be able to communicate, pull the best out of people, find out how, develop levels of enthusiasm at the right time, kick them in the butt at the right time, all those things. They have to offer the knowledge, offer the experience, offer the shoulder to cry on, all those sort of things. So I would say different, both important. I don't think they'll all be able to fit into one package, because I think you need to have somebody here and somebody here, really.
What a great point, right? Because if you think about our customers are using AI to analyze their talent, right? And that's called QA and QM. And it's the same thing that your scouts are doing to identify where the gaps are and what people do well, and the 5 tools in their skill set, right? And then they're using AI like SimTrain to give, targeted exercises to go make that improvement, which is where your coaches come in and give them the different skills, different drills, things that they're going to do to prepare for games, get game ready, even batting practice, things that, players work on. So I could see 2 totally different things. They live separate, but they work together in unison, Michael. I love the way you kind of pulled that together.
I'd like to take that also in another build on that. So Mike, you're constantly evolving and hopefully, getting better, with your health's okay, and you're constantly learning year over year. And let's say in your career, 13-year career. But I mean, and you get to the top of the pyramid, some of those, Hall of Famers, but you can always get better, right? And that might take a lot of different forms. The reason I bring that up is with SimTrain, where our solution, assesses talents before they're hired, then it's onboarding and training. But then there's like continual coaching for that agent who's really good, who's gotten good, but can always get better. And so I'd love to see, kind of get your thought, or is there a point where, such and such a player is just, he doesn't need any more coaching. I assume there's coaching, like you were coached until you were done, you retired. Is that fair to say?
Yes, no, absolutely. And well, I mean, when you're talking about the guys at the athletes at the talent that's at the very top of the game, you'll still see all kinds. You see some that are just so gifted. It doesn't appear that they're really putting in all the extra time in to do this or to do that. And then you see the guys that are working much harder than everybody else. So that's sort of a mixed bag, but those are the outliers, right?
Mhm.
Those are the outliers. The majority, the bulk, yes, it's always coaching. I think there's a culture that's sort of built where, I mean, that grind is how you earn the opportunity to showcase your talent.
Mhm.
And so you're always refining and tweaking, whether it's strength, mental skills, because then you're given, once you go out onto the floor, onto the field, wherever it is, in front of the board, in front of the table, that's that opportunity. That's what brings a smile to your face. Now I get to showcase all these great things I've worked on.
Yeah.
And for us in professional sports, it's for entertainment, also for record books, also this is how we support our families, and it's a different type of stage, but it is a stage, and a stage is an opportunity to showcase that you have to really kind of look forward to that and also enjoy the process to get there.
Yeah.
That just makes it easier. If you're fighting all the tools, all the workshops, all the extra work, I mean, you need to put on a different pair of glasses, find a new lens, because those are all the building blocks to give you the opportunity, like I said, to showcase for everyone, hit the home run, close the deal, whatever it is.
I love it. I love it, Mike. And the smile is the best part, right? Enjoy what you're doing, right? As you're doing it and getting better as you're driving up the echelon and getting to peak performance and peak levels. One of the things I love that you brought up today is a baseball organization is designed for player assessment, player development, and then what is a manager's role through the front office to help a team win. I think a lot of our customers, Ian, could really benefit from the structure of their, ongoing coaching strategies and how they organize their operations team with their training team in L&D and QA. And it does give me a moment of pause to bring up a note from our sponsors. We'd be remiss not to call out our sponsors. And this week's sponsor is brought to us by our friends from Redial, Michael. They're a San Diego-based BPO, bringing some excitement to the San Diego area, offering enhanced technologies like SimTrain and AI coaching to top-tier services and delivery to reduce their customers' operating costs. So I wanted to announce them.
Yeah, and it's so true, Dan. It's like I just keep seeing the similarities between a baseball organization and a BPO or a brand, and how they're bringing up their, from their heads of operations to their managers to the agents themselves, and all the different tools that they have, all the different tools and coaches that Mike had during his career, and the different stages of that development, and hitting versus pitching versus fielding, and how how all that interacts. And then you mentioned the front office, right? And like, how are they helping to provide those tools, the right resources to make those, help those players to perform their best. And it's the same thing, from a CX perspective. You've got to make those things work in harmony, and figure out how to, smooth them out to make them work. 1 + 1 equals 3. So,
And Michael, you're talking to a couple guys who enjoy a game of baseball, right? But never got to any super high levels. It's kind of funny. The older I get, as far as my kids are concerned, the better I was in my stories to them,
Yeah.
right? But
Good move.
yeah, thanks, Michael. So, but I was reading an article by Greg Warner from JMU. He was talking about Michael Venafro as a heavily driven, hard worker with a strong inner drive that led to his success. Yeah, and that maybe some other things too. Maybe you and Greg have a different relationship, but in this article, it was just talking about your success on the field in your life, and how it was kind of really, you had this drive, this ambition, and were personally driven to succeed at these highest elite levels that many of us never get to, right? When you're talking about a couple hundred people in the world that ever get to your level, Michael, at any given time, what would you say the impact of how you drove up from high school to college to minor leagues to the professional to major leagues? What would you say the percentage or just the amount had to do with your inner drive versus the impact coaches had on your talent development and being part of a team and your role to continue to grow and develop to the high success that you had?
Well, thank you, Greg Warner, strength and conditioning coach at James Madison University.
And you can tell
One of our coaches,
Yeah.
there, right? Wow. So for me, I personally, I was fortunate, and I mentioned before, the work was easy for me. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the work, and I mean, I think I also had the constitution for that, and back in the day, I mean, training and coaching has evolved a little bit more, so things were a little bit more rougher around the edges back then. But I was built to be able to handle those things a little bit. So I waded through those sort of years
Yep.
because I mean, physically, I'm just an average guy. I'm a smaller guy, and in professional sports, often that's a disadvantage.
Good point. Good
But
point.
I wasn't, I mean, I always felt I belonged. The challenge was never too big. There was always room for growth. And my life overall had balance and purpose. So, the purpose wasn't just baseball, So that kind of freed me up to push myself, because there was no fear of failing. There was only the excitement of success and the chance to showcase, and if it's your last day, it's your last day. What a ride, kind of thing. But and for me, because I wasn't always an Uber prospect coming through, I wasn't always on the radar from shoot, nowadays kids are 11 or 12, they're already, I mean, there's a different kind of pressure. Now they'll probably grow into it. And for us, it was different. But when I look at them, it's like, wow, the expectations already. I had to learn how to embrace and enjoy those expectations, which really didn't start to become a challenge until I was in the big leagues. Because now you're starting to see the top. You're starting to see the top. And now you're changing, instead of chasing something, now you're okay, now I gotta break through this, because this is
Yep.
this is all everybody's talking about,
Yep.
I'm the top 1%, in whatever field you are, so what do I do? Am I just trying to stay here now? Am I trying to, let's keep going? That became the bigger challenge, because my perspective that I discussed before, being free of any fears and excited about the potential success, kind of got me there. That and good, good fortune, a series of good coaches, being able to take in all the information, be open to all the information, being able to use it, and then keeping a good perspective, staying healthy mentally, physically, having balance off the field and at the office, kind of thing. It's all those things. I was very fortunate and never took anything for granted either, because
So
every day was just a day to showcase.
yeah, Michael, you're talking about mental and physical and combining the two, which is really
Right.
what helps people get to the pinnacle of success. But I do want our audience to understand a couple things here that I mentioned your physical attributes and comparing you to Brad Pitt, but
Oh,
Ian mentioned that we were all walk-ons at JMU.
yeah.
So I want our audience to understand Michael's coming from a point of reference when he talks about the mental game coming out of Paul the Sixth as an undersized athlete, not
Yeah.
recruited to go to any major colleges, was a walk-on at JMU, and then became the ace of the bullpen within a couple years, right? And then drafted later rounds, right, Michael?
Yep.
So at no point in Michael's career, from high school or college or even in the majors, was he ever like this top echelon recruit that everyone was pushing up. Michael, you had to fight inertia. I think everyone needs to realize that. And your mental approach to combining with your physical skills, I think you're telling us that was the difference maker, that your excitement in showcasing that.
Well, that's how it lined up for me, fortunately, right? So a good coach would be able to identify that and use that if I needed motivation, or if I needed to really hear a new message. Whereas he could turn to the guy at the locker right next to me, and he could have been touted since he's 12, dealing with expectations.
Yep.
Different type of animal there altogether.
Yeah.
Both very close
Yep.
to achieving a good level of success, but both have to be steered a different way.
100%.
I have a funny story, Mike. Maybe you can corroborate this. When you were in the New York in rookie ball, and I think the New York Penn League, right? Is that right?
Yeah, that was,
Okay.
yes.
So I went and came to see you and play a game. And if I'm not mistaken, you had, maybe it was your first year, you had a great record. You were like 9-0, and I think you were the setup guy, right? The Vulture, is that correct?
Yes. Well, that's a name that I was in the New York Penn League, so that was a name that I borrowed
Okay.
from a big league pitcher that had a lot of success stealing wins out of the pen. Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. So
Yeah.
I remember you telling me like, hey, and just look out because Texas is kind of light in left-handed middle relief. And I was like, all right, whatever, Mike. Like,
Did I say
up on
that?
just like, man,
Hey,
like, okay. And
set the
then
path.
and this kind of goes to what Dan was talking about, and your drive and your coachability and your, probably changing, whatever worked and figuring out what worked and looking at that pinnacle. And then I think it was 1999, if I'm not mistaken. I remember
It
where I
was.
was, and I turned on the Yankee game, and there you are on the hill. I think were you with the Rangers, still with the Rangers?
Rangers.
And
Yep.
this goes to show you, like, you put in the work, and saw your opportunity and grasped it. And I think it's similar from a coaching standpoint. In the CX space, it's like those agents who just excel and like just get better and better. And we've all had these interactions. Some maybe not great for those who maybe weren't as coachable. But then when you have that experience with an agent that resolves a problem, and with empathy and with confidence. And it's like that person was really well coached. They had to be. There's a certain level of talent, but talent only gets you so far, right? You have to work at it and kind of mold your craft
Ian,
and be able to.
Ian, I don't know if you know this, but Michael actually was a coach in 1999 for the Texas Rangers. Yep. So I was at that Yankee game personally. And I came
You were
through
there.
the bleachers. Yep, I came through the bleachers, through the stands, and Michael was in the bullpen, and probably about 60 yards away from him. I said, "Michael," he's like, "Dan, what's up?" I said, "Hey, let's connect after the game. What's your cell phone number? What's your cell phone number?" He's like, No, what are you, an idiot? Like, look around you, dummy. I'm not going to yell out my cell phone number in the middle of a baseball game to a guy who's standing like 50 yards away from me. I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Like that was a
Yeah.
stupid question, Michael, but you coached me. I'll never forget that lesson you
Oh,
taught me that day.
yeah.
You
Okay.
never asked anybody for their cell phone
I
number.
never had to use it again.
I mean-
I never came back up in any sort of use case, but it's a lesson I'll never forget. So. Hey, and Michael, I'd love to learn a fun fact about you. And if
Sure.
nobody knows, I have one. Michael, you're the only human being alive that I've ever seen throw a snowball over Shorts Hall at JMU. And
Okay.
yep. So it was a 7-story building, everyone. And I didn't have a weak arm, but not a really strong arm. I could never get past the 3rd floor. I would get to the bottom of the 3rd floor. Ian, I think you were the 2nd floor, maybe
No. I had a stronger arm than you.
first or 2nd floor for Ian. But Michael, he wouldn't even throw it on the roof. He would throw it over the 7th floor building. No other human being alive could ever do that.
And
That's
that's
Is it-
when you were,
ever
that's
seen,
when you were
Michael.
going fully over the top too. That wasn't in
Insane,
the-
insane,
Yeah.
insane snowball trajectory.
Yes,
One of the
incredible.
greatest
Could
snowball
light
throwers I've ever
somebody
met.
up from 25 yards. I do remember that.
No
Oh,
fear, no fear of it. We're throwing snowballs in the cold. No fear of injury. No
yeah,
fear of
none
injury.
whatsoever.
No fear of whose ever windows we
Why not? We
youth,
just wanted to see how
youth, and
far we
it's
could get it
ignorance. I know. How can we keep that state of mind, guys?
Any other fun facts, Michael, for our audience?
Wow, fun facts.
Something no one's going to know about you when they look you up on Google and Wikipedia and all those.
I've got one too, but we'll let Mike go.
What's yours? What do you mean? You got
All
one
right,
for
Mike, our freshman year, I will credit you with exposing me and probably others too, a lot of different music, good music.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Michael's
Let's see if
roommate, too.
Here's the quiz. This is 1991 for everybody out there. So think about, the alt rock scene. And we were driving, Dan, you might have been there too. We were driving up to your house in Northern Virginia to.
Was it Use Your Illusion 1 and 2?
No, hang on.
Okay.
Spend Thanksgiving there. And Mike said to me, hey, you've got to hear this new group. And I want you to fill in the blank. Do you remember what you said?
I mean, it could have been a few. I was into some stuff then. Yeah.
Nirvana.
Oh,
Was it
come on.
That
He
was
really?
That was I remember it like it was yesterday. And I was like, Nirvana, never heard of them.
Ian was sheltered, Michael. He was sheltered.
That's
No.
From an
Nirvana,
auditory
nobody had
perspective.
heard of Nirvana.
Musically.
Mike Venafro.
91. How old was Kurt Cobain then? Was he our age?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. But
Michael, you tell us one. We're done telling your story.
All right. Well, I mean, if
Fun
we're going to go
fact.
back to the same time, there's a few people that would know, and then a few people in my young professional career that would know that I mean, often for morale, I would assume the role of a primate. And I don't know if you guys remember me doing the monkey.
Oh,
ever.
yeah. Heck yeah.
no.
That's where I
Right.
thought Ian was going with the Volt
Oh
story.
boy,
from
yeah,
before.
no, yeah, for
Remember the
sure. No,
monkey.
it was a good way to break up a losing streak, or draw attention to the shy, quiet freshman in the corner that was just trying to make his way on the
Yeah.
team. Give him a little bit of attention. But yeah, that was always fun, and I broke that out the first couple years. But more cameras nowadays and more
Yeah.
things. So yeah. I mean, I'm glad that's not floating around out there.
Was that in the dugout or at practice or what?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Locker room. Yes.
All of you.
Stretch. Yes.
You want to do it? You want to give us a quick?
I can't bend like that anymore. I really can't.
Hey, Michael, favorite movie, favorite book?
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm on planes a lot, so it's mostly movies and TV series, so I can block out all the background noise. But I'm into like those historical sort of CIA things. Like favorite series, I liked Turn. That was kind of a Revolutionary War series. Movie, I like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. I liked more fictional stuff, like The Americans was always kind of interesting. I guess it started I always liked the 007 James Bond stuff growing up, and it kind of drifted into the stuff that parallels things that happen, more things that happen in history that were more historically accurate. I'm into a lot of those sort
Awesome.
of things.
Tom Clancy, Jack Ryan.
Sure. Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah. I've seen all those. Yeah.
My son's named Jack Ryan after that character in the book, and
I can see that.
He
Yes.
loves this historical accuracy type of history movies like you do. So,
Nice. Yeah, I do. I like that stuff.
maybe you guys are twins.
Maybe.
Ian, you want to take us home with anything, with favorite movie or book?
Favorite? Oh, wow. Well, favorite movie is Braveheart. I mean, it's Scottish people kicking butt. So I'm
Good one.
Scottish, so that's the number one on my list. I love lists. I could go on and on about that. That's a dangerous question, Dan, but I'll spare the audience.
Well, we'll open it up on future episodes, right?
Yeah.
Pulp Fiction's my favorite movie. You know, funny story. So my wife, before we were married, I told her parents that it was the best movie ever made and that they should go see it.
Oh,
And
damn.
they came back after the movie and they told my wife, you need to break up with that. You can't keep dating that. Michael Venafro, awesome session. Love the correlation of Major League Baseball, professional baseball, and coaching athletes with CX coaching on our greatest and most talented agents in the contact center. So thanks for the episode and talking to us, Michael. Appreciate your time today.
Guys, thank you for the invite. This is great. Great catching up.
A lot of fun.